Kills, Kenneth Cappelo, the photographer, and our very special guest moderator, Kate Lamphere from Elle Magazine.
Hello.
Hey.
Wow, another one of these. No, I've never done this in my life, so let's see how it goes.
We'll try and make it painless. Try. So I'm just gonna jump right in. We're here for the book, Kenneth Cappello's book. The Kills, dating back to sort of Vivian Hotel. It started out as sort of a creative collective, for lack of a better term, exchanging tapes, letters, photographs, and drawings via the post, no less. So it seems fitting to release a book, a photography book, sort of a visual representation to celebrate your 10 years together. You know, as you've documented your adventures visually right from the very beginning. True.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it can't. I mean, this whole thing just came out of. It was not really ever a plan to document everything. I think we just thought at the start that we'd never return to half these places, so it was kind of like thought it was our last chance.
Lucky last chance. But this exchange sort of has evolved, has always been between you two, sort of the diarizing, I guess, visually, both as visual artists. Sort of your creative journey, I guess, together. It's not just, it's musical and visual. Memories and sort of mementos. Where does this, I guess it's a seeming need from an outsider looking in to chronicle things come from?
I don't know. I don't know why. I always felt like I had to write everything down. I'd take a photograph of something and I'd never remembered if I didn't do that. I think I have a real fear of forgetting everything because so much is always going on.
For me, it's I drink a lot, so I can't remember quite a lot of it. So it's always been a good aid for me. No, I think growing up, we were always both of us, even though it was like 4,000 miles away from each other, we were both obsessed with doing art and painting and all that kind of thing. And then when you start touring, you kind of the way you create things changes. You can't really sit and paint something. Yeah. So the way that I produced art started to become more like scrapbooks and notepads and photographs. It's just how it transpired.
Yeah, it makes me think a lot of the people that you cite as inspirations as well. The Velvet Underground,
yeah,
and art movements, Dada, Warhol, all of that. It sort of seems to be in the same vibe. You don't see a lot of musicians expressing something in such a visual way as well.
When we started The Kills in 2002, like Warhol and the Velvet Underground were cool. Now I'm sort of being facetious, but it's like now it's kind of wallpaper. It's become so absorbed by the mainstream. But at the time, it just seemed like this beautiful way of making art for next to nothing. If you go into a photo booth, you can have a cover for a record for $3, rather than finding an art guy and designing something. That's why we started using cheap media for art.
Yeah. So as people are so visually, artistic as well as musically, what's it like then to have someone else document you guys visually?
Well, it's not as good, but... Well, I was always saying, when I met Alison, kind of part of the introduction was that when I first met Alison, we never started a band. It wasn't like, I like what you do, you like what I do, let's start a band. We just hung out, and it was for months. Just I'd play her records and show her books, and we'd just chat and sit on the floor, and I'd be fixing old tape machines, and she'd be listening to my boring stories. And then after a while, we just started fixing the tape machines and then playing something and recording it. And then after bit more time, we realised we were writing songs together. And that's how it was with Kenneth. It wasn't like, let's find a photographer. He was a friend that had a T3 attached to his hand all the time.
Well, basically, when I met them in Paris at a store called Surface to Air, and my friends, I had like a couple French friends when I was living in Paris, and they owned that store, and I'd always hang out. They had a creative space in the back where you could hang out. And he came back and he's like, you know the Kills? And I was like, yeah, I've heard of them. He's like, they're in the store. So I wandered out in the store, and the first thing I noticed was both of them had cameras in their hands. And I think we started talking about cameras first. That was our introduction. I was like, oh, are you guys in the photography or whatever? And they were like, yeah. They were taking photos in the store and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I take photos. And then we just started talking about cameras. So it was actually the camera that like made us like start talking. And then I showed Allison or Jamie my sketchbook. I was like, oh, check out my sketchbook. And I showed them my book, and they're like, well, we're working on our DVD in the basement tonight. You should come, whatever, hang out and take some photos. So we just stuck around, and so basically we met based on photography in a weird way. It was because they had cameras with them.
Organic. The conversation starts
And
again.
then so we photographed them playing. What was the DVD?
I Hate the
I
Way
Hate
You
the Way
Love.
You
That's
Love.
what
Yeah,
it's
they were
called.
working on I Hate the Way You Love, and I took some photos, and they invited me to their show the next night, and I went to their show, and that was it. We exchanged numbers, that was it. And then a month later, this is when I was living in New York, this guy texted me out of the blue, or he called me actually. Were we texting back then? I don't know if there was texting then, but he called me up and he's like, hey.
I sent him a telegram.
Yeah, he sent me, and he said, hey, it's Jamie from the Kills. We met in Paris, and I was like, oh, hey, and he's like, we're in New York. Do you want to shoot our press photos? And I was like, sure. And
That's when you guys went out to Coney Island, right?
yeah, that was our first, besides the Paris meeting and hanging out for a few hours in Paris. Yeah, we didn't know each other at all.
Yeah.
We met somewhere, got on the F train, and me and my buddy, and these two, we went out there with a bag of clothes, and
But so that was pretty interesting because we just ended up talking quite a lot and not really taking any pictures until the light started going, and then it was like, fuck. I'm doing an impression of him. Fuck. We better do some work, dude. So we went onto the beach and started shooting. Probably only shot 2 rolls of film, right? 3. And then we went out in Manhattan in the evening, and that's where the bulk of the shots started really. There was a lot from that.
we did the shoot in Coney Island, and then we went and had sushi or something, and then we ended up at the dark room on Ludlow Street, right? And yeah, a lot of the shots that really, I think, actually used one on your record cover were the shots that we weren't like, oh, this is our press shoot. It was like, this was us drunk in a bar, until the wee hours of the morning. There were those photos that actually worked the best for what we were doing. I mean, we used obviously the ones from the beach as well, but it just happened. We just were hanging out, just hanging out.
So 2 rolls of film, Coney Island. But then 9 years later, there were, I guess I read 600 rolls of film, 20,000 photos. Just from my perspective as an editor, how do you even begin to start to edit something like that, something that mammoth?
Well, it didn't start off as a book. It just started off as, after we did that, after coming out of New York, we obviously liked each other in some form, and we kept in touch,
Yeah.
And I think after that it was Hysteric Glamour, the label from Japan, called me up and said, hey, the Kills, right? You just did their press, or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And there's like, they like our clothes, Hysteric Glamour. Can you shoot them? Maybe shoot a fashion story on them. And I was like, yeah, maybe. So I texted this dude and said,
Edit it. It's like he's doing the whole conversation. And then I went out and I bought a sandwich, and
so I texted this
All about
guy.
the story, the details.
I texted this guy and I said, hey, I'm going to meet you guys on tour with a box of Hysteric Glamour clothes. Can we do a fashion story, like a week-long fashion story on tour? I'll just put the clothes on. I'll just bring a box of clothes, just put them on. And he's like, I don't see why not. So I FedExed the box of clothes to Switzerland. And I showed up, and they didn't know me very well. And I just like showed up in Switzerland by myself with a camera and a box of clothes. And I remember Allison was like hiding in the corner, like she was like, "Who's this dumb jock?" And yeah, and we did like 2 weeks or a week and a half. And I was like, you know what, y'all fucked up, because now I'm gonna be on all y'all's tours. And I just went on. That was it. The next 9 years, and whenever I had time, the door was open on the bus. I just got on. Right?
It's true. It's all true. But then, how did you narrow it down? Like you've got you've got access, you know, and it's like this like great old school. It's like 20,000 photos where you know.
I had 10 years to narrow it down. No, I mean I started in I realized I started shooting in 03, and we stopped shooting for this project in 11. Coachella of 11 was the last show. So over the years, I've been scanning the photos that stood out to me, and like thinking like, oh, maybe one day I'll do something with these or whatever. And then 9 years goes by, and there's a lot of photos, and I had a lot that I'd already picked out. And then when we had meetings on this book with Gary over here 6 years ago, we had meetings about this book with Domino, and then they declined, and Hysteric Glamour wanted to put the book out at one point, then they backed out. So there was always like this like undertone of the book maybe happening for like 6 years ago, but both people backed out twice. So I had started looking at the stuff. So
Right.
then 5 years later, the book came up again, and I'd already been sort of working on it in the back of my head.
Yeah.
So it was hard though. It was really hard to put the book together. I had to like pass it off.
In a way, it was that, it's kind of having that many photographs it's a luxury problem, because there were a few versions of the book, and the book could have been 3 completely different books. There's so many the first edit that came through. Most of the pictures we didn't end up with in the final edit, and I think it's just that was the beauty of it, that it was just about kind of capturing a feeling for the book, because there's no pictures that I miss.
Yeah.
That if we'd have chosen completely different photographs, then I probably wouldn't miss these either. It was
Right. It's just through a different filter.
Yeah.
How involved were you guys with the editing process?
I had to send everything to them because obviously there's photos. I was everywhere. I slept in beds with both of them. I've been
not
like,
true.
Yeah.
Dicey.
I was.
All right.
I was everywhere. So I have a lot of photos that I'd be like, hey, what about this? He'd be like, nope.
No,
okay.
I can see your dick in it.
Yeah.
No.
So I had to say do you mind this? Can we use this?
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I think there's something about what you guys do with the visual background, and there are images and things, with the Polaroid exhibition and everything. I feel like you do really expose yourself maybe more than some other. I know. Don't look at me so shocked, but I think there is there's an intimacy.
You said that I expose myself.
There are candid moments that we don't often see anymore from people in bands because they're projecting something that's much more manufactured.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I wanted to know if you were involved in the editing process, because how do you strike that balance between showcasing something that's authentic and real and protecting yourself and protecting.
I think editing's a real skill,
It's key.
and it's really hard, and you kind of have to be. To be objective, you have to be not part of the project, and then if you're not part of the project, then it's kind of, you don't want to give it away to someone to edit. So it's quite. Everyone has a different take on it.
We were involved in it, but not super.
I like we've
Yeah.
all got,
It was like
we've all got
important
different.
to not have photos in there that we absolutely hated, but there weren't
Yeah.
really any like that. It was just more.
I would send them a random PDF and be like,
Yeah.
hey, take a look at this. And they'd be like, oh, that's cool, but maybe not this photo, or maybe that, I would just send them stuff randomly.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't like a book where there was like a deadline and this and that. It was such a long process. And then when Domino called me and was like, we want to do this book now, then we had to put it in gear. And after the edit being very hard, then it came to lay it out, which was impossible. So I had to pass it off to someone to actually lay the book out. Because I had looked at the photos from 03. I've looked at these photos over and over, and I was like, I can't lay this book out. So, then we had someone else, after it was edited down and everything was approved by them, I had Colin from Saturday's Surf Shop store here in New York, laid the book out. He did a great job.
What's everyone's favorite photo from the book? Allison.
Well, I really like those ones, the ones where we're walking into the dressing room with the fan and all that graffiti and everything. Those are my two favorite pages, I think, in the book.
I love those. I love when you talk about, like every dressing room has cocks, like drawn on the wall.
Big
Seems to be
squiggly
like
cocks
yeah.
on every wall. Yeah.
Well, like I said, like a lot of them, I don't remember a lot of the. I like the eyelash curler thing because I have no memory of that. I don't know what I was doing. When I was curling my eyelashes. I think Kenneth brings the woman out in me quite often.
Funny thing is that eyelash photo. There's about 4 of those in 4 different cities. So I don't know.
And you have no memory
I had to
of it.
I had to pick the
of even
best
one of those. Kenneth,
What's
what's your
yours?
favorite photo?
One of those with when it's got your reflection in the glass, when you can
yeah.
see you,
Yeah,
which is about
obviously.
20% of the pictures.
I don't know. I mean, I think I like them
I
all.
love that we've all got different mic technique here. Like Alison's like this.
I just keep it ready.
Kenneth's like this.
Yeah.
Like he's in a hardcore band. Oh.
The subway stairway one over there. I like that one a lot because I really didn't notice it until a few months ago. Because you see so many photos, and then I realized that was the coming back from the trip from Coney Island, and I like that one a lot because they look so different. Like it's so long ago, and I don't know, I really like that one a lot.
That shot from Switzerland of Alison from underneath.
Yep,
I know that sounds
that's
a
from
bit.
Switzerland.
That I want to. Actually,
artistic angles.
I print of that. I think that's fantastic.
I love the ones of Allison laughing because they have the most, arguably the most contagious and unique laugh of anyone I've ever heard. And you had said that you were drawn to Kenneth because of his dark Texan humor. So
He's pretty funny.
I love that there are photos where he's
It's just rude.
making you laugh in
It's
there.
just rude. I really like too the one of Jamie in that hotel bed with the pink comforter. That one.
On the
I
bed.
love that one.
It's
so
not. I don't
much.
think it's a print, but it's in the book.
Where is it? Not out.
That was the thing. When I started taking photos of them, we didn't. I just showed up. They didn't really know me.
Yeah.
Like I think I remember her rolling her eyes at me on the first shoot, like on the beach because I was like
No, I just hate being outside in the sun.
Yeah, she hates the sun. But I didn't know them. It wasn't like we were friends and we were like, we're gonna do a book. It was like we just met, and then I ended up on a tour bus with them, and I was staying in their rooms, sleeping in the bunks. We weren't even on a bus. We were in a van in the beginning. Yeah, they started in a van, obviously, and I was just crammed in this car. It was just so it was very, very organic. It wasn't like we were friends. We're gonna make it. It was just I was like a fly on the wall, kind of.
Yeah.
But a fly that talked a lot.
But it is funny because I do so many of those. I know I'm joking about not remembering them, but I don't remember you being there on a lot of them. It's just kind of a testament, in a way. Now I'm hearing myself say it. It sounds rude, but what I meant was he doesn't get in the way. It's just like, yeah, it's just rude, isn't it? So.
But I mean, me and this guy got in some good art. We had it out here and there.
No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, we fought.
Oh yeah. I don't think me and Allison ever fought, but me and him, yeah.
We fought. Yeah,
we
before
fought.
then he started doing UFC and all that, and I don't bother now. But I used definitely. We'd have a few problems. Yeah.
Why didn't you do the book in chronological order? I just think so much of sort of visually what I see from you guys is stream of consciousness based on, like people you might have been inspired by. So was it
There was talk of that, just doing it from the beginning to the end.
yeah.
I didn't really see the point. Just thought, it was all photos of them. It was documenting their past 9 years. I felt like just put them in the book, however they look the best.
Yeah.
That's when I gave it to Colin. I said, listen, I have an idea how I want it to look, and I gave him like a small idea, and I said, just go nuts. You know, like this photo here of Allison in the striped jacket with the teased hair. That's recently. That's like that's 11 backstage at Conan, and
The teasing's new. Yeah.
And that photo is like in the front of the. You know, it wasn't a rhyme or a reason. It just what looked good.
Yeah.
Next to each other. You know.
It goes without saying. I mean, I thought it would come up more with like everyone's favorite photos, but what are favorite memories that sort of some of these images conjure up? I mean, like I said, for characteristically having seen you, we were just talking about the microphone cord around your feet.
You know,
For me, that's so trademark, and then there's a great story behind the image too. You know, so it's sort of this.
I could almost tell you where every
picture book
photo
of the
was
story.
taken. Weirdly enough, I mean, some of them I'm not sure, but I can almost tell you every place. And that's crazy to me because I have a bad memory, but there's a story behind everything, and unfortunately, I remember the bad times because the good times were so always happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I can tell you like where
What's a bad time?
where it
Yeah.
was. Berlin was that was a good one.
I forget what. Is something bad happen?
I don't remember you being there.
I can't remember it.
I was there.
It's funny because you must have been one of the few people that were there.
I think I was one of the
17
people that were at a 3,000 venue seating venue.
I mean, aside from that, like obviously you said, like the good times are always there. For a photographer, 9 years to follow a subject
Hey,
around.
listen,
That's no fleeting fancy. Like there's what got you coming back for more.
I'm lucky to be a photographer because I'm a high school dropout and to make money doing this or whatever. And B, I can play shit worth instrument. I tried to learn how to play an instrument because obviously you always want to be in a band when you grow up, punk rock or whatever. And I was like, shit, I get to tour with a band and do this, you know, like it was cool. Like it was the closest I'm gonna get to do anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like being on the road with a band and having all access and whatever. And it was the coolest part actually about the book and the whole experience was watching them go from playing in front of 150 people to 30,000.
Yeah.
Like the last show I was with them at Coachella, I walked on stage first. They were down on the grass, and I remember I walked out because I've been to like a lot of their shows, and I was like, "Holy shit! There's a lot of people here." And it was like not like just Coachella people; it was like people to see the Kills, and it was like it went as far as I could see. And I walked back down the steps, and I looked at Jimmy and I go, "This is a big show." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "It's big."
Yeah, it's funny because that's really hit me from when you look at the early pictures from the first tour that Kenneth came on. They're kind of like they focus on toilets and and like horrific hotel rooms and stages that look like they've been just stapled together with the carpet made of chewing gum. And then the sort of more recent shows, as things got better, bigger, I don't know, for us, then the focus starts to become on crowds. And there's the later photographs have got more crowd shots because I think it's just when the venues get bigger, they're kind of a little bit less interesting. You know, there's the scenes, the hotel rooms are less interesting.
Yeah,
and
because
it starts to focus more on the crowd.
tour bus isn't as interesting as the van.
I think the spectacle just goes out rather than in.
Because in the beginning, we were in a van. You know, I was sharing rooms with them. The venues were really small and shitty and smelled like shit.
All right. Everyone's got to start somewhere.
And then, you know, that last tour, not even the Coachella show, I think there was a show in San Diego before Coachella. It was like a House of Blues type, I think it was at the House of Blues actually. And just to see it started off an indie rock crowd in the beginning, and then by the end of it, I was seeing...
Tiaras.
Yeah, Tiaras.
I mean, that blew my mind. I was almost in tears
It's
after
a
the
different
gig.
show.
That was Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
That was the Mike Cord show.
First 3 rows of 17-year-old girls with tiaras and feather boas. I was like, what the fuck have we done?
Why were they there?
Obviously, your fans. We never saw them again after that.
I remember you had a meltdown after that
I
show.
had a meltdown, right? I was like, oh, I'm not going to
But
explain
I
it.
watched the crowd change and the shows change, and I watched the whole thing change. So that last show at Coachella, when there was like, I don't know, 30,000 people, and I told him, I think this is the biggest show you're going to play, and he's like, shh. And then he walked out and was like, whoa. It was big, but it was cool, because that was the last show I documented for this book, and to see, you can't see the end of people from this first show in Switzerland where there was 150 people. I was like, well, this is pretty cool to watch this happen, you know?
For sure, the evolution. I mean, I think the great thing, what I love the most about the book is these intimate moments we don't get, and they're punctuated by these
some of
like
the really intimate moments obviously couldn't make the final cut because they were a little too intimate.
Back to the editing process, yeah.
We'll have a part 2, maybe.
But it's because you are such a force to be reckoned with live. I mean, I knew you before I ever saw you live, and I was like, the first time I saw Allison, I was like, who is this girl and what has she done with my friend? But then that playfulness and the gentleness and sort of the relationship you guys have, it's all sort of in the book, and you captured that.
Well, that's what made this book interesting. I mean, obviously they're not the only band I've gone on tour with. I've toured with some other bands for a few days here and a few days there doing projects. And like shooting bands can be hard. Like you got 5 egomaniacs, you're shooting 5 guys, you're like, this sucks. Like there's like a front man.
So the Strokes.
Yeah. But
I was trying to think of a 5-piece band.
But so the Kill, I've shot tons of bands and I was like, okay, whatever. But with the Kills, it was really interesting because obviously when I met them, I didn't know them. I couldn't figure out what their deal was. They were they weren't a band. They were like an art. It was like they were together. They were like one.
Yeah.
They were they did art together. They
it's voodoo energy, you guys.
Yeah, the energy was weird. It was crazy energy. Couldn't figure the energy out. So it made it interesting for me because there was, with that crazy energy, lots of, there's only 2 people. So there's not someone taking sides. So I was turning to the guy, the other person.
Yeah.
Because there's no one, if you're in a band with 5 guys and you get in a fight, they get in a fight, you can go talk to the other guys.
That's really good because you ostracize the guy that's annoying, and then everyone else kind of, there's this sort of negative solidarity against somebody. But, you can't do it. I mean, I just end up sitting on my own in my fucking room, not talking to her.
But it was interesting. That
Brilliant.
Drew me to do the doc. When they offered me that I could come on tour whenever, they were the perfect band for me to do it because I didn't understand I didn't understand the relationship. I didn't understand their energy. It was crazy to me. To watch their stage show in the early days. So it was a really good subject for me. And like he said, when there was riffs or problems, it was funny because it wasn't like you could go be like, fuck him or whatever. He would sit in his room.
Yeah.
In his white wine.
Solidarity. Allison, one of my favorite quotes that you said about the book, I'm taking it out of context, is, I know when we're looking straight on, we're looking straight through. Do you remember saying that?
I do remember saying that, but I don't remember the context which I was saying that in.
The dive of backstage temporaries, electricity flung like paint through space, the face, the posture, the vehicle that hounds the road sweats. I know when we're looking straight on, we're looking straight through.
Well, I mean, I think I'm just talking about being on the road. It's a crazy place to be. It's really exciting. You wake up somewhere new every day. There's no kind of planning ahead. You don't know what's going to happen ever. You kind of get really addicted to that, and it's almost like walking a tightrope all the time. And really brilliant things happen. It's quite challenging emotionally, and it's quite hard to remember where you were yesterday's. All these things are kind of, I don't know, it's a confusing, beautiful state that suits me and suits Jamie and I. I think we excel when shit's really confusing and crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think, and I might have meant that about being on stage,
Well, I think
that crazy line between the stage and the audience.
You have to live it you don't really want to live in the moment in a way because the moment, as you can see in some of the pictures, is not very glamorous at all, and it certainly doesn't live up to the huge romance and those sort of iconic visions of what rock and roll can be. You kind of have to. It's not. You don't face up to the. It's not facing up to the harsh reality of it that keeps you doing it for 10 years. It's like it's living in a bit of a fantasy, and to me, that's how I interpret that. Of like not looking at it straight on, but looking right through it. You kind of like look.
And then looking back, now having the book, now having all these photographs, all these memories, now can you romanticize it? You know?
I mean,
how does it feel to look back now?
I do.
Instead of straight through it.
I think if I was 14 and I picked this book up and I had not been in a band yet and I was looking at this, I would want to do it so bad. You know, I think it's the kind of thing that inspired me before I started playing music, and the kind of images that would have blown my young mind, you know? And I absolutely, I love it. I think it's incredibly inspiring.
No,
I'm taking myself out of it and saying that, but you know, I do. I think it's all really important.
I think so too. Like I said, I don't think enough people are doing it, so I celebrate it. And it's a great project. I think we're gonna open it up to questions. Yeah.
We're gonna.
Can I have one of those? Let's do that. Hello.
2.
You have to give the mic to the person that's asking the question.
Hi.
Sorry, I've been in this business a while.
One question is, can I take a Polaroid of you guys?
My answer is yes.
Please. Awesome.
Sure.
Thank you. And my second question is, I know that the entire book was shot with film. We collect, me and my boyfriend here, we collect film cameras. I just didn't know if you had like a go-to reference that you use
For this book?
No, just for cameras in general. Like we'll get a lot of old cameras that we just buy in hopes that there's a certain charm to them, but I didn't know if you had like a reference for where to look into cameras.
You want me to tell you where to get it?
No, just like a reference point of where to look.
I recommend B&H.
Whether they're work,
I mean, listen,
like whether they'll work, whether they're still film for them, just more of a practical.
I mean, you know, when I first started taking photos, you know, digital wasn't here where it's at now. It wasn't even a thought. So obviously, photographers all use different cameras. Everyone, like that was the thing. You would use different cameras, and you know, everybody clung on to you find what you liked and da-da. I still shoot film, not so much for magazines or unless it's like it's something I can do. But usually they want stuff turned around so fast. But you know, all these photos, I can tell you what they're taken with. They're taken with a Contax G2 and a Contax T2 and a Nikon F100 and a T3 and a Fuji 645 Auto. But mostly the bulk of it is Contax G2 and Contax T2 and T3.
Okay.
Some Nikon, but I love all cameras. I think they all look different. You know, these cameras are sharp lens
And
cameras.
the Nickelodeon one.
Oh yeah, the Nickelodeon. That split frame photo was taken with a Nickelodeon camera. It's like a toy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Our fan base at Milk Studios wants to know some things. And Leon at Forever A Leon wants to know, looking at the pictures, was it more fun back then when you started, or is it better now?
It was more fun back then.
Fair enough.
Come on. I mean, I don't know. It's just like you're not really. It's hard to say. it looks more. I think you kind of tend to telescope all the good times together. You know, when I can do it. Oh yeah. You know, when you sort of when you think back on all those things, you tend to telescope all the good things together, and they eclipse all the boring moments. I mean, it's not like good times versus bad times, because the bad times are just as good as the good times in a weird way. It's the monotonous, boring times that are the worst. And you kind of, when you look back at all these things, you forget all the boring things. And now,
Are you having a good time?
do you know what? Do you know what's happened? I've gone blank. So I'm going to end there.
Hey, well, first I'd like to say that you're the soundtrack to all of my fun and monotonous everything all the time.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, what's your favorite place in London? What's your favorite scent? And what cigarette you smoke?
What was the second question?
Favorite
scent.
scent.
Scent. Oh, yeah, and what was the third question?
Favorite cigarette.
Cigarettes. Yeah. Okay, the first question. Favorite place in London? It's tough. No, what do you think?
My favourite place in London is my house.
That's mine too. My house, not your house, but our house.
I was going to give the address out then, but then I thought, no, what am I doing?
Yes, please.
But that's my favourite place. Favourite cigarette is Marlboro Light. But no, I like the first cigarette I ever smoked was a Player Number 6, because they're that big, and I was really nervous about smoking when I was little, because I thought, what if I'm going to have to smoke this big long cigarette? What if I start being sick or something? So I chose a really small one, and it was Player Number 6, and it had like a sort of life. What do you call those things in America? Like a life when you're drowning and someone throws you that rubber ring, life preserver. Oh, that's so sweet. A life preserver on the front and an anchor. That was my first cigarette. But Marlboro Light is my favourite. And what was the last one?
Scent.
My favourite scent. I'd have to say
Whiskey.
Serge Lutin Dark Amber.
About having good times and bad times. In the bad times, did you ever question whether this was something you wanted to do or continue? And if
No.
so, how did you keep going?
For me, that's weird, because I don't know if I've just got a really high tolerance, but I've never questioned it, no matter how bad it gets. You know, even when I was on antidepressants, and no, I've never questioned it. It's always just seemed like life's not really about just, having fun. There's lots of, being in a band is really hard, I think. I mean, it's a good job to have, but it throws a lot of weird, difficult things at you. And, I never really questioned it when I'm having a bad time with it. It's just part and parcel of it, I think.
I think that it's that one. I mean, maybe the reason we're still a band for so long is that. I mean, I don't know what the hell I would do other than this. I wake up in the morning. It's the first thing I think about doing. It's the last thing I think about doing. It's the only thing I'm sure of, maybe in the whole world. And so, bad times are bad times. I mean, you have no matter what you're doing, and but a sure thing is a sure thing, and I think that's kind of it,
I mean, everyone can kind of relate to, if they have to come up with a story about their life to tell somebody. Normally, the most exciting, funny stories are the ones when you were having a really bad time at the time. Then the worst time you had, the better story you've got. And maybe that sounds a bit superficial, but I'm always really aware of that, even when I'm having the worst time ever. That it's kind of, it's shaping me in a much stronger way than just lying on a beach having fun. Although I do like the beach thing.
I don't know how I
Last
feel
one.
about these Twitter people. Where are they?
Evie May would like to know if you had to sum up the last 10 years in 3 words, what would they be?
Kind of okay.
Hi, just 2 things. First, bit of an observation. You guys did a show in the Webster Hall 2003, 2004, where at some point during the set, the fire department strolls
that was
out.
amazing.
I thought it was a
Yeah.
striptease.
I did
I
too.
had no idea.
I did
what's
too.
happening.
And it's such a to have a live show kind of just stop dead in its tracks for just the 2 of you to pick it up again after they gave the all clear. It was really impressive to see, especially so
The best
early
thing
on.
about that was with the guy, the fireman that had the job of going on and announcing that everything was
He
safe
went,
again.
like, rock
And he
and
came on and it was like, you could say, it was his moment. And he went, "I'd just like to inform everybody that we've worked it all out and everything's safe, so fucking rock, yeah!" And it was like his little moment, and it was just so brilliant.
It was awesome.
The roof was on fire.
It literally was, yeah.
Above us.
Yeah,
And we had no
yeah,
idea.
that's-
But I was smelling smoke for a while, and then the
That's how
striptease,
much
and it was
ass.
just all.
That's how much ass you guys were kicking. But the other thing, for you, I'm not a professional photographer. Sometimes I'll bring a camera to a show, and you want to get a good shot, and you can't. And then you're in photographer mode. You're not really enjoying the show because like you stop and you're like, I should have got the. Do you ever like say like, fuck it, I'm just watching the show tonight? Or
Well,
is there
this is the
ever-
thing. Right now, I mean, I think everybody's losing out because everyone in the whole audience is standing there with their phone like this, and they're watching it through their phone. And it's so
phones are
fucking ugly for
everything
us to
up.
look at that. And it's so ugly for all the people behind them to look at that. And, if I saw an audience right now without that, I would feel like I was in a magical time of the past. How weird is that? I mean, that never used to happen. So I do think people are missing out. I don't, it's like, it's one thing to bring your film camera because you're going to run out after 32 shots, 36 shots, or whatever, And you can kind of pick your moments.
If you take a small enough camera, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because I started taking photos at punk shows when I was a kid. And
I did too.
The camera would be in my
but-
pocket. So it wasn't like I was worried about the show or the camera. Just take it out of my pocket, take a photo. I was like jumping off the stage, with the camera in my pocket. So it wasn't like a problem. But the phone thing is a problem. Because
All
now
those videos, no one's watching them. All those photos, they're ugly, they're terrible, they're blurry, and they're full of like hair from everyone else in front. And it's just, I don't
It's so
get
weird
it. I
because
don't
in a
get
way
it.
it's gone back to like early like Victorian photographs where you had to sit still like this, for like 10 minutes. And we've got it. And now it's like that with phones. You get people coming, "Can I take a picture with you?" "Yeah, okay." And then you're like
wait,
this.
oh
and
wait,
then,
oh wait, no, it didn't work. Oh wait, wait.
and then they evidently, the camera doesn't work, the flash doesn't go off. They don't know. I'm like,
I don't know how to
it's not
use
coming
this.
on. You got a text. And so, and it's kind of regressed back to that thing of sort of standing still for 10 minutes. It's really bizarre.
Oh, sorry, it was a video. You're like, Yeah, I mean, go to a gig, bring a film camera. You'll love the results so much better, and it's just cooler. It just is.
Thank you guys very much. Can we give a very applause for
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
So On behalf of Milk Gallery, I want to thank you all for coming out, and thank you guys for your generosity and spending time with us. I know it's never easy to get up in front of an, well, you two might be used to it, but I know Kenneth does not love being in front of an audience. So
He did great.
thank you for doing it. The official reception and book launch party will begin tonight at 7 p.m. So go out, have some fresh air, go smoke a cigarette if you want, and we'll see you back at 7.
Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.